My wife is pressuring our teenage son to claim his ex's baby, even though he swears he's not the father. She says he needs to step up, but I demanded a paternity test, and now she's furious. Hello, Reddit talkative here. I never thought I'd be in this situation. Standing in the middle of my living room, staring at my wife while she screams at me for humiliating a teenage girl I barely know. But here I am, pacing like a caged animal, trying to wrap my head around how quickly our family got dragged into a mess that could change my son's life forever. It all started 3 months ago. My son, Mason, is 17, a senior in high school, and, if I'm honest, a lot like I was at his age. Quiet, focused, and obsessed with sports. He's on track to get a football scholarship, the kind of kid teachers and coaches love. He's got a small group of friends, stays out of trouble, and, as far as I knew, had never even been on a serious date. That's why I was blindsided when a girl named Emily showed up at our door with her mother, both of them looking like they'd rehearsed their little performance. Emily was holding a newborn in her arms, her eyes wide and red, while her mother stood behind her with a tight, smug smile. "Mason," Emily said softly, "we need to talk." My wife, Rachel, practically jumped to let them in, ushering them to the couch like they were honored guests. I stayed near the doorway, arms crossed, because I already had a bad feeling. That's when Emily dropped the bombshell. Mason was supposedly the father of her baby. "What?" Mason had choked out, his face draining of all color. I'll never forget the way he looked that night. Like someone had just hit him over the head with a brick. He kept shaking his head, stammering, No, that's not true." But Emily's mother wasn't having it. She whipped out her phone, scrolled through some screenshots of Mason's texts, and said, "These don't lie. He was with her. He needs to step up." The texts were nothing damning, just vague, "Hey, how are you?" and "want to hang out." Messages that could mean anything. There were no pictures, no explicit proof, nothing. Still, Rachel immediately turned on Mason. "Mason!" she cried, her voice trembling. "You told me you weren't seeing anyone. How could you keep this from us?" "I'm not lying," he shouted back. "I never touched her." We hung out once at the arcade. That's it. But Emily's mother was already talking about child support, responsibilities, and doing the right thing. I watched the scene unfold like it was a bad soap opera. My son was practically hyperventilating, my wife was wringing her hands like the sky was falling, and this girl, this stranger, was sitting in my living room with a baby, acting like she'd just secured herself a future. That's when I stepped in. "All right, enough," I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. Everyone turned to me. "If Mason is the father, then a paternity test will prove it. Until then, this conversation is over." Emily's face fell. Her mother's smug expression turned into a glare. And Rachel? She looked at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. "A test?" she snapped. "You're going to humiliate her?" Mason should just take responsibility. Responsibility for what? For something he says he didn't do? I shot back. "No, we're not ruining his life over some screenshots and accusations. If he's the father, we'll step up. But if he's not, I won't let you all railroad him." Rachel stormed out of the room. Emily and her mother left in a huff, muttering something about lawyers. Mason just sat there, pale and shaking. "Dad," he whispered, "I swear I didn't do anything. She's lying. She was dating another guy. I think she just wants money." I put a hand on his shoulder and said, "I believe you." The next few days were hell. Rachel wouldn't speak to me except to accuse me of being heartless. She said Emily was just a scared teenager who needed support. She started buying baby clothes just in case, and even began telling friends that she might be a grandmother soon. Meanwhile, Mason was spiraling. He stopped going to football practice, barely ate, and looked like he hadn't slept in days. So I took matters into my own hands. I contacted a lawyer, set up a paternity test, and told Mason we were going to settle this once and for all. Rachel was furious. She said I was destroying Emily's reputation. Emily's mother called me a monster. Even Emily cried on the phone, begging me to just accept the baby because Mason knows he's the dad deep down. But Mason never wavered. "Dad, I swear, I never even kissed her." The day of the test was tense. Emily showed up with her mother, glaring at us like we'd ruined her life. Mason's hands were shaking so badly, I had to hold them steady when he swabbed his cheek. Rachel didn't come. She said she couldn't bear to watch our family tear itself apart. We waited a week for the results. A week of silent dinners, Mason locking himself in his room, Rachel snapping at me for being cold, and Emily's mother sending me long texts about how I was traumatizing her daughter. Finally, the envelope arrived. Mason and I sat at the kitchen table while I tore it open. My hand shook as I read the first line. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. Mason wasn't the father. I can't describe the relief that flooded my body. Mason let out a choked sob, buried his face in his hands and cried like he hadn't in years. But the relief didn't last long. When I showed Rachel the results, she didn't apologize. She didn't even look ashamed. She just said, "There's no way. She's lying about the test. This is fake." I couldn't believe it. My own wife was so determined to believe a stranger over her own son that she refused to accept hard science. That's when something inside me broke. I started digging. I hired a private investigator to look into Emily and her family. Within a week, I had everything I needed. Emily had been in a serious relationship with an older boy named Kyle, who dropped out of school and was known for getting into trouble. She and Kyle had broken up right around the time she got pregnant. Emily's mother had filed for bankruptcy twice in the last 5 years. They were drowning in debt. They'd also tried to sue another boy's family 2 years ago for emotional damages after a breakup. It was a scam, a calculated move to pin the baby on a boy from a stable, financially secure family, my family. When I showed Rachel the report, she finally cracked. She sat at the kitchen table, shaking, tears streaming down her face. I thought if Mason had made a mistake, we needed to be supportive. I didn't want to be a bad mom. A bad mom? I snapped. You chose a stranger over your own son. You made him feel like he was guilty until proven innocent. That's not support. That's betrayal. She sobbed, but I didn't comfort her. I couldn't. Not after everything Mason had been through. I called Emily's mother and told her I had the test results, the private investigator's report, and a lawyer ready to sue them for defamation if they didn't drop their accusations immediately. She hung up on me. 2 days later, Emily posted a vague apology on social media, claiming there'd been a misunderstanding. It's been a month since then. Mason's gone back to football, but he's quieter now, more guarded. Rachel and I are in therapy, though I don't know if we'll ever fully recover from this. Sometimes I catch Mason staring off into space, and I know he's replaying those weeks in his head, wondering why his own mother didn't believe him. That's a scar I don't know how to heal. As for Emily and her family, they've disappeared from town. Rumor has it Kyle came back into the picture, and no one's sure who the baby's real father is. All I know is this: I almost let a lie destroy my son's future. And if I hadn't demanded that test, it would have ruined his life forever. I've never been more grateful for trusting my gut.